All right. We are now live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Superlative Podcast. I'm Edward Bushi. One guest, no edits, no post production, just a sharp live conversation about what it takes to reach higher levels and what comes next. So let's get into it. I want to give a warm welcome to Craig Taggart. And Craig works at Qubit Ventures. He thinks the era of hyperscale data centers are already ending, and he's putting money into the hardware that replaces it. Before we get into your story, just want to say big welcome. Thank you for joining us. Would love to know about what you're doing at Qubits Ventures, and then we'll circle that back to that.
Sure. No, thank you for hosting. Appreciate you having me. Appreciate the time. So a venture partner with Qubits Ventures. We're the first U.S. based venture capital firm focused on quantum technologies. Pretty exciting, especially now. And really, we're kind of sitting at the position of the future of computing. We think we're at a critical inflection point regarding just the industry as a whole. So talk about future of computing, future of intelligence, artificial intelligence, and then the future of infrastructure, basically. So we invest at that seed, post-seed, Series A level, and we just presented at Caltech in April, which was very well attended. We even had some media there, so definitely things are going in the right direction. So we're very excited.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to get on this call with you because to
Yeah,
me, the way we had this onboarding call, quantum is just going to be the new layer of infrastructure that changes everything downstream.
yeah,
So, yeah, would love to. We'll circle back to that, but like, would love
sure.
to know how did you get your start? Because quantum is new. Nobody just jumps into quantum.
Yeah, exactly. It is new, and I've been fortunate to be partnered up with my GP. I'm part of the GP, obviously, but he started the firm 4 years ago, if you can imagine that. So we actually have investments in quantum technologies going back to 2022. So we're very early. So yeah, I'm fortunate to work with him. He Nardo Manilotto. He speaks all over the world. He gets invited to speak on technologies at different conferences. He's flown to Singapore, he's been in the UK, just all over the place. I can't even keep up with him. So very fortunate to be working with him. I've learned a lot. So yeah, I basically got my start at UBS over about 20 years ago. I'm going to turn 51 this year. And so I started in capital markets there, wealth management, investment banking, and then started working with kind of lower middle market companies in technology. So this is right before kind of SaaS came into play, but deep tech companies, software B2B, B2C, uh, capital advisory, strategic growth, M&A, along those lines. So just kind of built my experience here in Southern California. Great firm, great reputation, built out a great network, and really allowed me to learn a lot. And then I was able to kind of work my way into the family office world.
Mm,
Family office world, as you know, has changed dramatically over the last 10 years regarding where um, a large amount of capital has been allocated to for private families, private wealth, where they can invest in basically whatever they want. So a good friend of mine runs a family office by the name of Ligo Partners, and we've done a tremendous amount of work for kind of early stage companies, venture backed companies, venture growth companies, technology agnostic, really.
mm,
So if you think about the Sequoias, the Andreessens, the Khoslas, the major VCs, they're always on the cap table.
mm.
So that's important for a variety of reasons, which your listeners probably know. And
Social proof.
from there, I got a lot of background in healthcare, which my partner has a lot of healthcare background. Just kind of work my way into healthcare space. So you think about, have a background in technology and a background in healthcare, and then you understand how family offices work and the investment process and the capital markets. And, that kind of landed me at Qubits Ventures about 14, 15 months ago.
Mm.
So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, yeah, like that's very recent. Like that's
It's very new. Yeah,
yeah,
it's very new, and I've had to learn a lot quickly, but I'm very focused on it because I think, based on the news a couple weeks ago with the Department of Commerce investing, $2 billion into the space, obviously that, our timing is just perfect.
yeah,
But this is very much a education and awareness phase. So I was at an event at straddling law firms in Newport Beach last night, and they were actually talking to me about quantum technologies and quantum computing. It's like, yeah, we keep hearing about it, but we don't really understand it, and we really don't know it. And it's like, yeah, I know, because
oh
we're
man,
currently in this kind of NISQ era, which I will bring up to your listeners, and that's kind of the noisy intermediate scale quantum, where hardware developers are tackling the challenge of error correction and qubit stability. See, so I know that.
wow,
So so I mean that's kind of where we are. But
yeah.
the news is coming out regarding Microsoft recently and Google recently, and things are happening much faster than people realize. So
Yeah. So about that, just to ground people watching this now and in the
sure.
future, all right? You paint a picture of quantum computing seemingly being the next opportunity that's like on the horizon, if not already here. And to
Right.
me, or in a lot of people, quantum is like decades away, right?
Right. Right.
In our imaginations, right?
Sure.
So like from just if you could put it in like one or two sentences, like what is quantum, at least the most important parts, and then why is it a near term thing from your point of view, and what changed?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that's changed recently, and it's really about, if you think about it in terms of, because every great business is built on the problems that they're solving, right? So
Hmm.
if you think about, like, why did the government come in with a $2 billion investment 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Why is that? What's the reason for massive amount of dollars? We already had $1 billion in revenue for privately held companies this year alone for quantum. How is that possible? All these questions. Well, it's really built around a few different areas, and that's really, I mean, first of all, I'll tackle the reason why the government came in
Hmm.
2 weeks ago, which I think is relevant, and it's really kind of this watershed moment for the
Yeah.
industry, which you saw in the public markets. A lot of the publicly traded companies that were affected directly, they popped like 10-20% in a couple of days. So there's really, I'll just cover it real briefly because I know we're within time, but it's really, number one is the pivot to this in industrialized picks and shovels infrastructure. So this quantum debate, the focus on qubit counts and algorithmic breakthroughs, this reframes the whole bottleneck, right? So we're talking about an industrial manufacturing challenge. That's the problem.
Hmm.
So over half the allocation was in pure play software, right? So you talk about IBM, you talk about global foundries, that's a lot of that capital went into those companies. So by funding this underlying kind of manufacturing infrastructure, the government is trying to build a domestic kind of quantum TSMC, right? That's kind of what they're thinking.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So if you start thinking in terms of that, then you start to understand a little bit about what's going on behind the scenes. So no matter which specific qubit architecture wins the commercial race, it's really about the entire ecosystem,
Yeah.
which is going to rely on these foundries to scale. Number two, they're not betting on one company, right? So they're really betting on this diversified portfolio. So it's kind of a sovereign basket approach. I mean, they went into supercomputing, they went into neutral atom, trapped ion, silicon photonic. They went in all those companies. So, so it's still unproven which hardware architecture will achieve true fault tolerancy, which is the whole game here.
Yeah.
And really on that utility scale quantum computing, the US government is basically refusing to pick a single winner, which is smart because it's still too early. So they're really diversifying as a venture investor would, right? Which is what we do
Yeah.
as a portfolio. So they're basically saying, okay, diversified portfolio, and but they're funding every single modality within the space right now. So they're really spreading the capital that ensures a sudden breakthrough occurs, and one of these companies, they're going to be positioned to take advantage of that. Finally, which is probably the most important, is it's telling more about the government taking a minority non-controlling equity stake in these companies. So it's a signal of deeper I guess what I'm trying to say is they're looking at it from American industrial policy now.
Yes.
So this is like it's validating private capital, so it aggressively de-risks a lot of these high volatile pre-revenue deep tech companies. That's basically what they did. Right. So they're basically signaling to the capital markets that, hey, we're investing $2 billion here. That's a huge de-risking signal for the government to do that. So I mean, it's basically like a sovereign wealth fund coming in and say, you know what, we're going to invest $2 billion, but it happened with the U.S. So, and then finally, you talk about like geopolitical risk. So this move in quantum, a really acceleration firmly into the realm of national defense, right? So this massive state-directed capital pouring into quantum systems globally, particularly from China. Obviously, that's on the radar, has to be on the radar. So it's a competitive move. We want to make sure that we're positioned, in the proper way to where we're not being left behind from a geopolitical standpoint. So that's really the breakdown of why that's important. So just to recap, it's really three areas. One, the pivot to the industrialization or picks and shovels infrastructure. Two, the sovereign basket approach, really kind of a portfolio that the government invested in. And then three, the shift to really the state-owned guaranteed offtakes for national security, geopolitical. So it's probably a long answer to your question, but I thought it was important to touch on that.
But it's very, very useful and very useful for folks who need a deep context on this one. Like if I were to recap it and put it in my own words, these quantum foundries don't exist yet, right? They're not even built in Taiwan yet, right? And if they're going to be built at all, build them in the U.S., where the U.S. has this motive or this intention now to rebuild industry and manufacturing in the U.S. So why not build a new thing in stateside, right?
Yeah.
So I find that really like elegant and as a solution. I like how the government comes in, invests. It's a positive signal for other investors to also come in, and that's where you guys come in, no?
Right. Yeah. So we're positioned pretty much in line with what exactly they did. So like I said, think about it as they're trying to build a domestic, to your point, a quantum TSMC, right? That's the game. So so for us, it's basically the same type of approach. We're investing in, we've got 3 companies in Fund 2 and 13 companies in Fund 1, but we're looking at the AI software, AI hardware, imaging, sensing, healthcare, bioanalytics. I mean, and then we have, defense and security, which I think is important. So American Binary and Aliro Security, energy and infrastructure, which is Pink, which is a great company. And then communication sensing, which QC82 is phenomenal. So same approach that we've been taking, and it just kind of validates our thesis. So it was good.
Yeah. So one of the other things that you mentioned in the onboarding call with me was something about errors can happen within 10,000 qubits or something like that. it's not in the millions anymore, and that is for some reason an unlock for the industry. Like it means something. Like, do you mind expanding on that?
Sure, sure. So basically, it was kind of timely, right? So I post a lot of stuff on LinkedIn if you or your users want to follow me. But so we presented we presented at Caltech Day. There's a quantum day at Caltech,
Mm.
and about 2 weeks before that, their research team at Caltech. This is all theory, right? It's not,
Mm.
they basically prove that, and this goes along the lines of error correction, right? So they basically proved that it only takes about between 10,000 to 20,000 qubits to do this. To do this process rather than this, 700,000 million qubits to really run a quantum computer around error correction. That was the whole process. That was the whole, post that I wrote about. So why is that important? Well, it basically allows the capital markets, allows research, because a lot of these companies are coming from labs. They're coming from Los Alamos. They're coming from R&D, but this year we've really reached the stage where it's like, okay, these are commercial level companies. There's a use case to them. They're going to solve problems.
Yeah.
The private markets are investing in these now. There's, all over the world. There's a big sovereign wealth fund by the name of 55 North that is investing in quantum. They're the biggest quantum fund in the world.
Is it based in the
So
States?
you're starting to see the landscape open up, and it just basically proves that you don't need theoretically as many qubits as everybody thought you did, which basically means that you can run a quantum computer much more efficiently, and with a whole lot less architecture, infrastructure, energy along those lines. That's all I'm saying. So,
Gotcha. So, like, one of the talking about timely, right? Like, one of the key
sure.
things that you're saying is that data centers are maxed out in the sense that they're doing so much compute, and there's not a lot of power that's around. And do you want to talk about like that, and like how a certain company in your portfolio can solve the data center issue?
Sure. So, great question. So basically, what's happening right now, and whether users are realizing it or not, but we're kind of at this physical wall right now, right? So, and again, talked about this last night in Newport Beach at this law firm, but we're kind of at this physical wall where you've had these silicon transistors, zeros and ones. We run into limits of physics such as electron tunneling. So the computational demands are really, we're kind of there. We're kind of at that wall. Moore's law is what it's called. So we're looking at a time where it's like, okay, quantum computing is changing the game. Why is that? Well, it's really, you have to start rewriting the rules now, right? So you talk about like classical compute processes, information zeros and ones, right? Very basic level. Been going on for decades. Quantum computers use qubits, hence the name Qubits Ventures, right? So the leverage in principle is really in quantum mechanics. And for me, I'm a business guy, again, education and learning, right? So you're talking about a superposition. So a superposition is a qubit can exist in a state representing both zeros and ones simultaneously. Why is that important? This allows a quantum computer to evaluate a vast number of possibilities at the same time. So that's where you start to get much, much higher speeds, much, much higher efficiencies, much, much higher levels of compute. And then you get into the entanglement part, which is where qubits can be linked together, meaning the state of one instantly influences the other, if you can kind of put this in your mind, right? So this creates a massive exponential leap in processing power, which is really where our current energy grid is, right? And in processing power with qubit added, it's with qubit added. So because of this, you're looking at, these are high complex mathematical problems. We all know this, and I'm not one to really speak on it in detail. My partner is probably better capable, but I'm going to do the best I can on this call. So our thesis is quantum computers can find answers in minutes, right? Rather than a classical computer will take, thousands of years. So that's why you're starting to hear the news about, this classical computer did this marijuana chip did this Google chip did this, because it's so much faster than what classical computing limitations can do. So that's why this physical wall is now being broken, and it needs to be broken because we're at that limit where we can't go any further. So the data center space is a huge example of that, which you brought up, where we can't build any more data centers. I mean, there's a lot of pushback now in the last year around Google, Nvidia, Microsoft. They're getting turned down. It's like, no, you cannot build land. You cannot put more data centers on this land. We've built out enough. So again, it speaks to that physical wall. What's the next step? How do we get more compute power? Quantum technologies. So some of our portcos are involved in that. I will mention, let's see, one of those is energy and infrastructure. One of those is Pink Technologies, and I'll just give you a little about that. So that's Pink Technologies is again, think about this, right? So a nonlinear optics platform enabling next-gen sensing, compute, and energy-efficient photonic circuits. We invested in that in 2023, which was 3 years ago. Why is that important? Well, it's scalable. Nonlinear components unlock new performance levels in sensing, quantum systems, and AI acceleration, and data infrastructure, right? So that's just an example of one portco, and then I'm going to just read another one, while I'm on our site here, where I can reference, so your audience can understand what we're doing. So another one is Pronoia. Pronoia. We invested in that in 2022. Yeah, we've been invested in that for 4 years now. So that's a physics-based energy storage for renewables and grid-level compute resilience. Again, talking to the point I was just mentioning, it's technology aims to deliver orders of magnitude improvements in capacity, enabling a fully decarbonized energy system capable of powering the next industrial era. So both those portcos are in line with what I just kind of basically said. So, but I just wanted to reference those so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, one of the things that you shared with me, or that there's like some follow-ups actually I have, the idea of like everybody's pushing back against having data centers, right? It makes me think of there's a book out there called Life After Google, right?
Yeah.
Where the world, if we stay with classical computing, the world cannot build enough data centers to serve the public, because the need or the demand for data centers grows exponentially. It doesn't grow linearly. So do you think quantum changes that? Are we still going to live in a paradigm of data centers? Because to me, and I don't know what your portcos are building in terms of these quantum computers. They could be like wearables. They could be fridge-sized computers, right? So like, what comes first? Is it a quantum data center or these miniaturized quantum computers?
Great question. So data centers are here to stay. They're not going anywhere.
Okay.
But how their infrastructure is set up is changing, has to change, just because of, I think there was a ratio out there for years. I don't know if it's gotten any better, but it used to be because I'm actually affiliated with a data center up in Oregon, at Oregon Health and Science University. So I'm part of that team, very green energy data center. But I think it used to be, it was a 98-2 ratio where you had a 98% demand and a 2% capacity, something like that. And maybe it's even worse now. So basically that means pretty simple math where if you build a data center, you already have the servers and racks in the first hour that can be open. So there's just not enough space, not enough compute power needed, and that's on the edge, that's at hyperscalers, that's both. So to answer your question, we basically are kind of we've moved in that direction already, where we're friends with or my partner's friends with Chad Rigetti. Chad Rigetti is a very, very big name in quantum technology. He runs Rigetti, publicly traded company.
I'll look it
So
up.
he actually held open room for us to invest in Sigaldry Technologies at the seed and Series A level. So that's one of our portcos for fund too. So that's going to be a unicorn. I mean that's huge. So basically, Microsoft's in there. It was led by Breakthrough Energy Ventures and Initialized Capital, but what that company does is a $139 million raise. Yep. So you can kind of tell the capital that's already moving in. So basically, this is a financing to build quantum accelerated AI servers, right?
Okay.
So that speaks to, okay, how are the data centers going to be set up? Well, those are quantum servers are probably going to go on those data centers, and that's what that company's building. So, so again, this is really kind of the next great compute company. I'm just referencing this because we just invested in it.
Yeah.
But would emerge at the intersection of quantum, AI, infrastructure. 3 areas that are happening right now, big problems being solved. And we think, Sigaldry is making AI dramatically faster and more energy efficient with quantum. That's what they do. So to be invested in them so early is just, we're so happy with that. So and that's with Pink, I think, as well. So go ahead.
Yeah. One of the things that really struck me from the call was that the onboarding call we had, just going back to it again.
Sure.
You mentioned there was four types of approaches to doing quantum, and you referenced this early at the top of the call, right? The government investing in these 4 different types, but Qubits, right? Qubits Ventures, rather. Your invest or really honed in, it seems, on neutral atom. Do you want to talk about that, and why is that such a game changer?
Yeah. So I'll kind of reference what I said earlier, but there's architectures within quantum that I mentioned earlier, and I'm trying to reference my notes here real quick.
No worries.
But so neutral atom technologies is something that we're tracking pretty closely in the fact of, as far as potential portcos. So you've got architectures that are built around trapped ion, neutral atom, and photonics, and then supercomputing, right? So neutral atom, and there's a publicly traded company, I think it's Inflection, I have to make sure that's correct. But they've done really well. And the reason why neutral atom architectures are starting to gain traction from what I see and what we're seeing is because they are architectures that don't need this super cold, Kelvin environment to operate. They can really
IBM is doing.
They can operate. Yeah, they can operate at normal temperatures, which is in line with what our normal compute architectures currently set up as. So, that's one of the areas, the architectures that we're looking at. We haven't invested in the space yet, but so there's companies out there like Rigetti, I mentioned, D-Wave, IonQ has made a couple moves in neutral atom technologies, but we're looking at a couple companies right now for that exact reason. And it just if you think about it, it just makes sense, right? I mean, what's gonna make the transition easier from a current compute state to try to adapt to new architectures that require potential space, infrastructure, temperature changes, or would you rather go for an architecture that will smoothly transition into what we're already accustomed to? So that's a very basic answer to that question, very, very general answer, but it is starting to emerge as one of the architectures that will win long term. And there's a lot of thought process behind that from the capital markets as far because it's more speed. I mean, how fast can this happen? To your point earlier in the call, it's like, okay, this is 10 years away. It's like, yeah, I mean, if you want to go through architectures that are involved in superconducting and trapped ion, these other ones, yeah, that's a whole different landscape, whole different architecture, whole different build out, a tremendous amount of capital investment to do that, different teams, engineers, quantum people. So yeah, that build out is going to take much longer, but we think from a speed and efficiency standpoint, the neutral atom architecture is probably going to adapt faster, and that will allow quantum compute to really become more mainstream and commercialized and profitable. So that would be my answer to that. So.
You remind me of startup thinking, where you just want to get the solution out there as quickly as possible, right? So you're painting a picture where neutral atom architectures means that you can build the quantum computers, and it sounds like you could just integrate them in existing data centers, and and these data centers are now quantum accelerated. So it seems like a very shrewd play. Just use the customers that are here right now. They're asking for more compute.
Yeah, and that kind of goes along the lines of what I said earlier about if you go back to point number one about the pivot to the industrialization, the picks and shovels infrastructure, which is what the government did. So I mean, they're kind of painting a roadmap for you. Like, look, this is what our game plan is. It doesn't have to be the only game plan, but this is what we think is going to make sense.
Yeah.
Not only for us from a foundry standpoint, but we want to be diversified. We want to be in the companies that could be the next, TSMC or whatever. Yeah. But having that approach, let's be shrewd about it. Let's be business people about it. Let's make sure that this is an efficient approach, but let's make sure that we can actually make this happen from a private capital validation standpoint, right? So you can't spend a lot of money and be efficient in the venture markets either, right? Mm-hmm. So you want to be able to have that efficient capital and have that return that can actually power the next generation of compute power, which we needed yesterday.
Yeah,
in reality, right? So I mean, whether people realize it or not, there's major issues when it comes to energy as well. So, but that's what I would say.
That's really really cool. I wanted to come back to Qubits Ventures now, because we talked a lot about like how you're making the case for quantum and these products, and you showed me how it works, and you showcased some of the companies. Would love to know if you want to talk about other stuff about it, like for example, how does like AI fit into like what you're doing? Like now that we're talking about Qubits Ventures.
Sure. So I think it's on everybody's mind. AI is on everybody's mind, as it should be. But yeah, we're really at that. I mean, obviously, I read a lot about this. I mean, we're really at that point where we're at the only time we've had a more disruptive change in our industrial economy is probably going back to the Industrial Revolution. That's really how profound it is right now. So you're seeing AI everywhere when it comes to Gemini, the Chat GPT, and Claude. I mean, I use those every day. I use like 3 or 4 agents a day now, which has dramatically changed over like 6 months ago. So,
Yeah,
but it just
sure.
makes me more efficient as a business person or a venture partner or whatever I'm trying to do. So that adoption curve is happening real time. And so you have the AI adoption, whether it's through apps. So our thesis is really around, obviously we talked about quantum technologies, which is, the core thesis, but next gen compute, obviously we talked about that, photonics, but the other area we talk about or invest in is next gen AI apps. And that's
Mm,
really that kind of domain specific intelligence layer, which allow for real-time decision systems, which is what I just talked about, that operate beyond classical limits, right? That's one of our investment theses. So if you think about where AI is, and you think about the engineering behind what we just talked about regarding like quantum technologies and some of the companies and what we're invested in, what IonQ is doing, what D-Wave is doing, Rigetti is doing, Inflection is doing. So they're all doing different things.
yeah.
What architectures are out there. So you start thinking about the engineering behind quantum, and then you start talking about AI. It's like, okay, well, now you've got something. Because there's one thing where AI apps and everything can really help accelerate efficiencies, but now you start talking about, okay, there's an engineering component around the quantum compute space now. So what do you think that's going to do in combination with AI opportunities,
Mm,
right? So then you start thinking about, okay, is there a relationship there? We think there's a very strong correlation between those. And we think that they're both going to start, or they're already fueling each other's speed and efficiencies to market. So you talk about, one of our investments, Taggart Technologies, I just mentioned, and that's again the intersection of quantum,
yeah.
AI, infrastructure. That is right in the sweet spot of what I'm talking about. So, that's on the server level and the hardware level, which again will really start to, move move things along much faster than people realize. So yeah, and then if you go back to December, Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google,
Yeah.
he came out and said, and he's obviously biased because he's got the Willow chip through Google, and they put a tremendous amount of R&D into that. But he came out and said quantum is where AI was 5 years ago, right? So and then
Oh, it has
you
this chat
got
GPT moment, you're saying.
yeah, exactly. It was a
Okay.
chat GPT moment. He said that in December of last year. So and then you got Microsoft came out today on they have a second marijuana chip coming out that they think will be um, running quantum compute at a very commercialized scale in 3 years. So you can start to see the speed of things really start to move up.
Hmm.
Um, and then that goes into like security issues and cryptocurrency
Oh
and
yeah.
banking systems and financial areas. So but
Communications.
yeah, you're starting to see, but yeah, it was, when he said that, it was funny because now 3, 4 months later, hey, look where we are. And now that the government invests $2 billion, is that by coincidence? Probably not. So, you start to see the, events that are happening, and they're happening pretty quickly. So,
Yeah. Very, very fascinating. You mentioned crypto because, like, I come from a crypto background, like
yeah.
building apps, working with different blockchains with my
Oh, cool.
co-founder.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but like I've always been. I guess it's the FUD. I guess it's the propaganda where quantum is the enemy. It can break the encryption of blockchains. But from the discussion that I'm having with you, this is so cool. It makes
Yeah.
complicated networks easier to run. Not only that, but way more cost energy efficient. We
Yeah.
can have the most sophisticated blockchains on the planet, and it
Yeah.
won't even like cost more or eat more than a city, for example.
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
you've unlocked some really really cool stuff in this conversation.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. This has been great.
Yeah. So
Definitely.
I want to ask like a final question, and
Sure.
see where it lands. You could push back if you don't agree with it,
Yeah.
but so we're all about decentralization, right?
Yeah.
The thing about compute being spread out and even in people's homes, for example. So this
Yep.
question goes: if compute and energy both become as abundant and cheap as you're betting they will, the whole logic of keeping it in a few hands will fall apart eventually. What does that future require of people building it right now to make sure it arrives?
Um, well, I think you've got, I mean, I'm a big believer in decentralization. I mean, I've been an investor in Bitcoin for like 7 or 8 years now. I'm in BitTensor Tau, just to name a few.
Oh
So
yeah, BitTensor, their AI, yes.
yes, those subnets are going to be powerful. But yeah, so I'm very interested in that. But yeah, as far as energy goes, I think it's really this renewable energy, smart grids, logistics problem that has to be solved. And I think where we are, I think is will help solve that. And I think modern energy grids are becoming. I mean, either are becoming or already are decentralized. So they
Mm.
balance that traditional power with kind of the renewable sources such as wind or solar. How strong that is, how much the government likes that, I'm not sure, but that's along the lines of EVs, which you see everywhere in Southern California here. Um, but it's really kind of this fluctuating supply and demand of massive optimization problems. So you've got these quantum algorithms that can analyze, you know, across entire grids, continents simultaneously.
Hmm.
But to optimize the power routing, blackouts, I mean, that's the problem, right? So then you've got areas such as superconducting, which roughly, I think, 5%, maybe 20%, somewhere in there, it's all generated electricity is lost as heat during transmission over traditional copper power lines. So, quantum simulation is a key to unlocking, I think, in some capacity. And it comes down to an area that I'm not good at, which is material physics. I'm a business guy. Please know that.
Yeah, yeah, no worries.
So, but yeah, so just to kind of to answer the question, I guess, so it's like more of an AI data center energy crisis. So the explosion, I think, of
Hmm.
generative AI and LLMs has triggered this huge surge in data center consumption. That's really what's happening. So, so I think quantum computers will offer a path for decentralization and computational efficiency, really through this energy calculation ratio potentially. So, but again, they require these cooling systems. So you have to think about that. And the energy required to power these processors remains relatively flat, even as compared to, traditional. So,
Hmm.
I think the path forward is on this NISQ era, which is the noisy intermediate scale quantum, which is now in this commercialization stage, I believe, early stage, first inning,
Yeah, yeah.
um, is really ranging from this superconducting loops to neutral atom architectures, mature and achieve kind of this fault tolerance. And then quantum computing will cease to be a theoretical luxury. I think it already has. Um, and then people like Caltech, USC, UCLA, Berkeley here in California. We're in touch with Quantum California people, so they're potentially an investor in the fund who we'll hopefully see. But I think it will become kind of this engine that will drive the simulation of new materials,
Hmm.
optimization, and really this clean energy future is our goal. What we think will happen. California is very California or clean energy efficient. So they're very much leading that charge. So we'll see.
Yeah. Thanks for that take, Craig. So
Yeah, sure.
I before we close off, this has been a fascinating conversation, but I'm sure people who watch this and want to watch in the future will want to reach
Sure.
out. Like, what's the
Reach
best
out to me.
way?
Sure.
Yeah, what's the
Definitely.
best way to do that?
Best way to do that is you can find me on LinkedIn. I post a lot. I probably post 2 or 3 times a week on quantum, on AI, on consulting, stuff like that,
Hmm.
business related. But yeah, my email is pretty simple. It's just Craig@qubitsventures.com. I'm on our website. You can find me there. So happy to talk to anybody or viewers or listeners on your podcast. This has been a great conversation, and I'd welcome doing another one if you're open to that as well. So yeah, please reach out to me. I'm at Qubits Ventures, and happy to have a conversation. So
Yeah, Craig, thank you for that, and thank you for coming on board to our podcast. Thank you for your insights, and like
yeah,
blowing my mind about like what I didn't know about crypto. I'm sorry, not crypto, quantum. So yeah, I really
you got
appreciate
it.
you coming.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'll leave it at that. But when there's commercialization and we see the first data centers like being used, I would love to like have you on board again, and maybe I'll use one of their services while we're doing it.
yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect. I
So
love
yeah.
it.
So Craig, thank you so much for being here, and
Thank you, Edward. I appreciate
we'll
it. This has been a great call. Great conversation, and all the best luck of your podcast here. I think it's great.
yes,
Appreciate it.
sir.